CSS transitions, I want to start off with a caveat that transitions, while awesome, are easily overdone. So we want to focus on meaningful transitions. What is something on a website, when you interact with any website, has a transition? One that you'd expect to have happen.
Scroll bar?
Scroll bar, baby, okay.
Background.
Think of maybe something that slides in or slides out, or slowly appears or slowly goes away. Yeah. Pictures good. What about nav bar? When you click like a nav bar, does the nav bar just pop into view or does it slide in from the left? You know, there's things that we expect transitions on now just with how web development's become. You know, you hover over an icon, maybe it grows a little bit or the color changes. So we're going to look at transitions mostly using a single pseudo selector in CSS called hover. But transitions, you can do them with JavaScript as well, quite easy. And we'll look at a quick example of that. There's a few properties we need to be aware of for transitions. We're going to cover that first. But my question is, to start off, I've got this div on my HTML, and I'm going to give it a background color of cornflower blue. How come my div did not appear on the screen? Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I just want to drill that into your head so in case you don't have it yet. Something I tripped up on a bit. So yeah, I need to give it dimensions because what is the default dimension of any container? Yeah, 0 or the size of the content. This div has no content, no words inside, so it won't appear without giving it fixed dimensions. Ooh, okay, I got this cool looking box. Well, I guess cool is in the eye of the beholder, but I think it's cool. Let's cover some transitional properties. So pseudo selectors in CSS, or pseudo elements. Pseudo selectors, pseudo elements, somewhat interchangeable. There are some differences, but what they represent is events basically for an element. You know, what should an element do if a current event occurs on it? And yes, we do have events in CSS, such as hover. So pseudo elements or pseudo selectors are denoted by either a single semicolon or a double semicolon if it's a pseudo element. So it would look like that. But hover is just a pseudo selector, so it's a single colon. And this stands for the status of if the user's mouse is hovering over this element. So now it's firing, now it's not firing. Now it's firing, now it's not firing. So let's see if this works. I'll say background color should now be firebrick when I hover. Now when I hover, it changes.
So this basically takes out JavaScript.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do in CSS you don't need JavaScript for, but there are, we'll see, there are reasons for JavaScript in transitions. Okay, so is this a transition? Is it transitioning? So transition is more the word of like, it gets there over time, not immediately. Like a transition kind of denotes there's a time lapse in between the starting point and the ending point. And right now it's not, it's blipping from one to the other. So it does make a change, but it's not necessarily transition. So we put the transition properties on the base class or ID or selector. So here's all my base styles. This is where I'm declaring my transition. And the hover is just giving it some things to transition to.
The hover is considered a transition.
That's a pseudo selector. It's denoting a specific event for an element. So when I hover over the element that has this ID, make this CSS change. All right, so there's 4 transition properties we need to look at, and then we'll combine them. First and foremost, transition property. Transition property is saying what property of this element do you want to transition? Do you want me to pay attention to? Well, in this one, background color is the property, so we'll just say background color. That is what we want to transition. The next one is transition duration. How long should this take to take effect? So you have milliseconds and seconds. I'll say 500 milliseconds, half a second. I could also say 0.5 seconds, same thing. Notice when it's appearing, it's kind of already transitioning a bit. Okay, the next one is transition timing function. So this is saying from beginning to end, do you want it to be linear? You know, do you want it to happen slowly over time at the same pace, or do you want it to speed up at the beginning or speed up at the ending? So by default, it's linear. Linear transitions have no change. They don't slowly transition or speed up. It's just at the same time. But there are some preset ones. You can say ease in, ease out, ease in, out, where it like speeds up, slows down, speeds up. There's a bunch of these preset ones, and there's also functions that we'll look at like cubic, Bezier, that are even cooler. But let's just keep it as linear for now to keep it simple. And I need to spell transition right. Lastly, we have transition delay. That's saying when I hover, do you want to wait a second before the transition occurs? So I'll say, sure, wait a half a second, and then do the half a second transition. So now the whole transition, wait for half a second, transition for half a second. All right, so now I'm going to hover, and it has that nice transitioning effect. But it's not just color we can do it on. What if we wanted to say,
like border radius?
Yep, border radius, we'll say turn into a circle. But notice, it's not transitioning the border radius. Why not?
Change the transition property.
Yeah, I need to add it to the transition properties. So I could say, comma, also the border radius. I want both of these to transition. And now we get the
Now,
full.
what happens if you're just on the very corner of it? Will it like mid-transition just go back?
Nope. Because the div is still a box. The border is what's shaping it.
Because technically it's still like.
It's still a square.
Square is just.
It's aiming in the borders to show a circle, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So if you put a background border on it, would border follow the circle? Or?
It would, yeah. Border and border radius are tied together. All right, how about another property? How about we add width to the, or height to the effect? We'll change the height to 400 pixels and add that to the transition property. And I'm starting to really hate the delay, so I'm going to get rid of it and make this go a little bit longer. All right, so a little bit of CSS. It looks like you're using JavaScript, but you're not. All right, well, just like margin, padding, all those things where you can say margin right, margin left, margin top, do them separately. That's kind of what we're doing here. There's also a way to combine all four of these in one line, and that is just by using the word transition. And the order is exactly how we went over them here. The first one's property, second duration, third timing function, fourth delay. So I'm going to comment these out and say transition should be background, color, border, radius, and height. Also do it for 1 second, make it linear, and then I'm not going to give it a delay. So now I've combined them all in one, and I did use the wrong syntax. I think I need commas here for the properties. Yeah. Ooh, something's going wrong here. Need a comma there as well. There we go. Yeah.
That's cool.
That is.
So we can do it all in one line. Now, you can put it on the transitioning class, like on the hover, but notice what doesn't work when you put it on the transitioning class. The transitions to pops out. So not as desirable of its effect. You want it on the base class. Right, let's play with the timing functions for a second. So instead of linear, let's do ease in. It might be a little hard to see, but it should slowly and then speed up at the end, right? Slows and then speeds up into it. Ease out, we'll go fast and then slowly, at the end it slows down. Or if you want it on both sides, say ease in, out. It goes slow, then fast and slow. But those ones don't have any customization to it. You can't change it. Yeah.
Is there a way just to loop it over and over again?
That's an animation instead of a transition. Yeah. But yeah, you can with an animation, tell it to repeat. So instead of ease in, ease out, let's look at a fun one called cubic Bezier. And what I would do if you're ever using a cubic Bezier, just use one of the suggestions to start off with. So cool. Now it's cubic Bezier. Let's see what that does. Cool. Kind of shoots to it and then slows down. But what it is, it's a timing function. So you can really customize this on a curve. And the way to do this easiest is using your dev tools. Come to dev tools, you go to the element console, you find your element box, you go to the classes and you find cubic Bezier. See this little button here? It's a cubic Bezier editor. Dev tools have so much. You click on this and it opens up a little animation editor where you can change the curves. And up here, the ball will show you what the animation is doing. So that one's going to shoot. Boom. How about we do something crazy like that? So now it's going to go out and kind of bounce and come back.
I didn't know this existed.
Right? Dev tools. So anything you're making in CSS, box shadow, cubic Beziers, those type of things that are very customizable, you come into dev tools, you can customize it all live. Once you find the one you like, you're like, great, this is the animation I want. Copy, paste, and now I've got my nice little bouncing.
So one thing that I've been wondering is there like some sort of program that will make it so you change something in DevTools, it will also change it in VS Code so you don't have to copy and paste?
Not that I know of, no. That would be cool though. That would be cool. So I went to the elements console. I found the element with the transition. Here's the cubic Bezier. I just click the little curve here and it opens up this editor. There we go, huge bounce.
What are the other line on the left do?
Those are like preset. So this is pretty similar to a linear. That's what a linear curve looks like. These are actually all, this is an ease in, ease out, this is an ease out, this is an ease in. Yeah, fast out linear, but then they have these, you can click through here. I have some preset ones. That one's fun. Moink. Yeah. Cool. So, all right. So that's the basics of transitions, just playing with the box. But let's look at a real world example. Let's make an app bar. And let's throw some JavaScript into the mix. Oh my God. Let me fix all of this. Comments are the bane of everyone's existence. Comment out everything. Everything. Okay, so here's our website. We have a sweet nav bar with some links. I'll just use p tags for links, home. And about and contact. My styles, I'll grab the nav just so we can see it. I'll give it a height of 100 viewer height. It's tall of the page. I'll give it a background color of some dark gray, maybe some opaque gray. Let's get rid of the default margin and padding on the page. Cool. We don't want this to be full width, so we'll say width is maybe 300 pixels. What the hey? Are we just super zoomed in? Yep. Let's make this 200 pixels. How about 150 pixels? Yeah, that's better. We'll make it a flex box. with the flex direction of column and justify content space between, or space around. Oh, line items center. Yay, navbar. Okay. I would like this to have a button that I can click. I'll just stick it over here in the corner, and this slides out, slides back in. So let's go introduce a button to the mix. It's going to be right down here for now, so we need to move it. Let's grab the button. Well, it's going to give it a position of absolute, so we can put it wherever we want. We'll put it 10 pixels from the right-hand side. So we'll just sit down here, and let's put it near the top of page 2. Okay, so we got this button. When I click it, I want it to trigger this nav transition. So this is where we're adding JavaScript to the mix to make this work. Let's give the button ID so we can grab it. Nav button. And we'll give the nav an ID as well. Actually, we'll give the nav a class. Class of nav. Okay, so we got our base styles there. Now we're going to play. That's just to get things in the right spot. Now we're going to start playing with the properties. So nav and yeah, okay, let's add a click event to our nav button. So we need a JavaScript file. And if I'm going too quick or I'm losing anyone, just stop and ask. I am kind of flying around here, setting things up. Okay, I need to grab the button. So how am I going to select it? Yeah, cool. Okay, I got my nav button. I need to add a click event to it. Sweet. Let's see if it works. It works. Okay. So you've seen these nav bars, right? They slide off the page, they slide back on. How do we represent that without the nav getting messed up? Well, positioning has a lot to do with it. If we give our nav a position of absolute, what is that telling it to do?
Yes.
Yeah, right now it will stay where it is, but if we had other elements on the page, and this was lower on the page, when I say position absolute, would it have moved? It would have. Absolute takes it off the page. It has no more, it's not spaced relatively to anything else. It's floating on top of everything else. And it also gives you access to the positions like left. I can move it from the left 10 pixels or from the right. I can move it 10 pixels, which will move it further to the left or 10 pixels from the right. Okay, so now I can kind of move it, and I can even give it negative. I could say move it to the left negative 20 pixels, and it's moving slightly off the page. If I say negative 200, which is larger than the nav, it completely disappears. So what I really need to transition is just the left property. When you click it, left should be 0. When you click it again, left should be negative 150 pixels. How do I do that with JavaScript though? So by default, the nav will be left 0. It's right where it is. It's sticking to the left side of the page. But I'm going to make another class here called nav active, or nav closed, sorry. That makes the left negative 150 pixels. And now my job is to, when they click the button, add this class, okay? And when I click the button again, remove the class. Kind of following?
Following, but I don't know how it's going to come together yet.
Yeah, the magic's about to happen. Okay, so in the app.js, we need to grab our nav, right? Because when the button's clicked, the nav is the thing that needs the class change. So I'm going to say const nav is document.get elements by class name. nav. And what does get elements by class name give you back? What data type? Yeah, an array of nodes. So I need the first one, the only one that exists. Give me the first element. Because this is going to always be an array, even if there's only one element with that class name. So I need to tell it which element I'm wanting. From this array you give me the first element. So now I have my nav. And when it's clicked, I just need to toggle this class off and on. So I could do the whole thing where I can see if it's currently active, remove the active, if not, add it. But class list has that functionality built into it. I can say nav.classlist.toggle nav closed. Now it's going in and out, in and out. Classlist.toggle checks the element to see if it has the class. If it does, it removes it. If it doesn't, it adds it. So it gets rid of having to add that extra logic. But it's still not transitioning.
So the later classes are more specific.
Yep. Yep. The cascading effect, even though the original one was left 0, when I add this one, this left overrides it. Well, I need to transition it. Where do I put my transition in this mess? I could put it here, or I could put it here. Something that is the base class. You know, really to clean this up, I should be putting all this in one place. I'll show you good convention, so let's get rid of that. Yeah, we want to put our transition here. So I'm going to say transition. What property am I transitioning? Left. Cool. Let's say 500 milliseconds, linear. We're good. No, only if I'm doing multiple properties, like left, color, font size. Like if I'm naming multiple transition properties. Yeah, those ones don't have multiples that you can choose. It's a single duration, a single timing function. But now just with this one line added.
So you don't have to put transition property.
Yeah, it's shorthand for all 4. Yeah. But yeah, there we go. There's our nav transition.
Did you put it on hover, so when you go to hover over it?
That'd be annoying. I want to go home. No. Okay, so that's kind of fun. Maybe play with the cubic Bezier. See what that one does. Cool, that's a little bit more drawer-like, right? Well, what if I don't want it on the left? I want it to transition from the right. How hard is that?
Stay right.
I'm going to change both the words right, or all 3 of the words left, to the words right. Great. Now I've got a left.
You said you wanted to transition it to the right side.
Oh, so yeah, I just meant from the right instead of from the left.
Could you do that with like different keywords? So you have to transition like position properties.
Yeah, if you were changing, the thing is it's only if that keyword is changing. So if I was changing it from position absolute to position static and I want that to transition, but position isn't a transitional property. You want to think colors, dimensions, and
I said position, but the property specifically, like if you wanted it to go from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, you just have to left. If it's supposed to be the map.
oh yeah, you just you know, it may take some tweaking too. So instead of that left 0, I want it to transition to the right 0, and then left. We'll leave that off. I wonder if this would work. Yeah, it's really confused because this is still there.
Right.
Can I say none? I don't know. No, none doesn't work.
Well, you're not really giving it like a place to go.
Well, I'm saying go to the right 0, which would stick it against this side. But since the left is not getting overwritten by this class.
Okay.
Then you're right, or not.
Then you could say like right 500.
There we go.
What is that?
Should we transition the left and the right? No, it's getting confused.
We put it right on
Oh, you have the right item on.
Kind of fun though.
This is a good hypnosis tag.
Yeah, you're getting very sleepy. You're giving me your credit card. You're giving me a non-maxed out credit card. I am not paying off your credit card. But yeah, so transitions are fun, distinct, meaningful, right? You don't want to go to a website where every single thing you hover over flies around the page, because we want to make good websites. That's the main reason.
I've done that where you try to get the X to close an ad and just.
Yeah. So I wanted to show both examples. Like, yeah, you can do everything with CSS as far as like hovers go, but as soon as you get the JavaScript, it's the same effect. You need a base class that has a transition and a transitioning class, and all we have to do is toggle that class name off and on, and it'll do the transition.
You look at the JavaScript.
Yeah.
So what is the 0?
Yeah, let's get rid of that in console log. This is worth looking at. So when you do get element by ID, you're doing a find one. You're saying give me a single element, so it'll always give you an object or null if nothing was found by that ID. But if you're doing get elements, notice the S versus no S here. Get elements by class name, get elements by tag name, query selector, all. That's going to return an array of elements, even if there's only one that matches. So when I click, I get an HTML collection where the first item in that array is my nav. So when I say get elements by class name, I'm telling it to grab the first element out of that array because that is my nav bar. Where if the nav had an ID, I wouldn't need to do this because I'm just getting the nav directly rather than in an array.
Would it still work? I mean, it saw it through an error, but what if you had like 2 different nav bars and you wanted to surround them?
Yeah, so this would be the first nav bar.
And you'd have to do.
This would be the second nav bar.
So you have to put the brackets.
Yeah, or you do a for loop through them and add all the things, through that way. But yeah, whenever you're doing a selecting function that has S in elements, you're getting back an array. You're not getting back the elements. You have to go into that array and tell them which element you actually want to change the classes on. And then we're just toggling this class off and on, adding it. And it's kind of cool. You can see it. Let's actually see that as well. So in elements, when we see, here's our nav. Doesn't have nav active on it right now. Notice when I click the button, nav closed, nav closed, nav. So elements are great. You can see it working in action, class going on and off.
So would like a media query affect how this works? I feel like that's the best use case for something like this.
Sure. Yeah, media query, you don't have to change your JavaScript because all your JavaScript's doing is toggling the class. But yeah, you may have to do a media query for like mobile. Maybe you don't want it to come in from the side. You want it to be at the top and like accordion down and go back up. So you're going to change a lot of the elements on the base class and the transition class, but the JavaScript stays the same. So in your media query, you could say, hey, mobile, I'd actually like this nav bar to stick at the top of the page here. When I click the button, it like accordions down, accordions back up.
If you transition like to the media query, move it up.
Oh, like in between. So if you're like dragging the page, it like transitions up. Yeah, that you don't worry about that. If someone's doing this to your website, they're using it wrong. Like their website sucks. It's not transitioning. No, you need to learn how to use a computer or something like that. Yeah, if we could see off the page, the nav bar is still here. It's just sitting over here right now. You can put elements off the page. They still exist on the DOM. It's just not in the view of the window. We wouldn't want to do width with this because if we change the width to go to 0 and then to 150, the words inside are going to get squished and pop out. So we want to keep the nav bar the same width and just move it off the page. Okay.